Single most like aesthetic muscle on your physique probably will end up being your shoulders if you develop them correctly. I think overall they probably have the best effect on your V taper, width as a whole, and just overall size and everything. I think it is definitely something you should not neglect, and something you probably have grown to not neglect, because like other things, it's probably more fun to train than other muscles. But as you've probably seen, I'm gonna give you some advice and stuff that's worked for me specifically to grow mine. I've been training around 3.5 years now, and I feel like I've been doing this long enough to really find what works best for me, and I think some of this will translate to you if you have similar tendencies to me. Not everything I say here probably will apply to you. Some things you may find don't work for you, and some things you may do. So whatever you feel like is going to work for you, take the advice, keep it, run with it until eventually, you find your own way of doing things. But yeah, I'm not gonna waste any more of your time. I'm gonna get straight into it. And yeah, firstly, what I want to say before I get into like the nitty gritty of it all is don't neglect rear delts. Now, a lot of people just assume big shoulders just means you spam lateral raises, shoulder presses. Yeah, I will say that is the majority of where the growth will come from. People aren't gonna notice your side delts and everything first before your rear delts. But the importance of having capped delts comes from front, side, and rear. You want to have that capped look from the side as well, like where it pokes through like that. It developed the rear delts look very good. So, and they're fun to train as well. They're very, very simple as well. All you really need is one exercise. I literally do 2 sets for rear delts each session. So I train them once with back and biceps, and then once in my dedicated shoulder and arm day, and that is all I need. 2 sets of just reverse flies. You don't need to go super optimal and do like the whole Jeff Nippard thing where he sits angled on the bench with his arm and he just rotates it all around like that. You don't need anything too complex. Again, it's quite a small muscle, so you really don't need too much crazy. Now that that's out of the way, just keep that in mind. Don't neglect rear delts. But the main thing you want for not just shoulders, but literally everything you train, this one principle here that I'm about to tell you applies to everything. Don't do too much volume. All you need realistically is around 3 to 4 hard sets each shoulder day. That's it, nothing more. Junk volume isn't going to get you anything. Again, not just for shoulders, but for everything. You don't need too much volume. Training intensity is the main factor which you should really be focusing on, especially for a muscle like shoulders, where people, I feel, struggle to really see that mind muscle connection with their side delts. I know that I did for the longest time. I tried all the cues, like the rotating your wrists inwards when you're going up, imagining there's a bucket of water you're trying not to spill, all this stuff. I tried it and some of it works, yeah, but I think just naturally training more intensely for a specific muscle which you struggle to feel, shoulders being a predominant one for a lot of people, is a quick and easy fix for that, because you're naturally going to gauge how much you're feeling said muscle if you're training more intensely. And you don't need to go super heavy. Again, you should go heavy enough to where you fail within the 6 to 8 range, which is what I do. Again, you're not really going to be going too heavy, especially on lateral raises, because again, it's a pretty hard exercise to progress on, but you do need to track your progress and make sure you are progressing on them, whether that be in weight or in reps within each session, each week, because that's the easiest way to know without visually seeing whether your shoulders are growing or not. So if you do continuously do them, you probably will, like, if you're a new lifter, you'll definitely see strength increases a lot faster than anyone who's intermediate. Like this video is more targeted towards intermediate people, that's why I kind of just jump straight into things. but if you are new, then you will see strength a lot quicker, especially on your shoulder press and stuff. But lateral raises is where a lot of your focus should be. You do get some side delt activation from shoulder press. You do need a compound for the major muscle groups, shoulders being one of them, and I think a shoulder press in your program will definitely be something which you will benefit from, whether that be a machine one or a free weight dumbbell press. It doesn't really matter. I personally do a machine one just because I feel like the stability helps me more, and again, it's plate loaded, so it's easy to progressively overload. But again, like I said at the start, your preferences might be different to mine. So if you feel like a free weight one is more your thing, go for a free weight shoulder press. But no more than 2 sets of pressing for shoulders is you need. You don't need anything more than that. I think what I do personally on my dedicated shoulders and arms day, I start with 2 sets of pressing and then just 3 sets of any lateral raise variation of your choice. I personally alternate them. So when I do my push workout at the start of the week, I do cable lateral raises and then on my final shoulder session towards the end of the week, I do dumbbell lateral raises. But for both sessions, I do a machine plate loaded shoulder press. That doesn't change. But again, find what works for you. If there's anything you should take from this video, the main thing is experiment, find what works for you and stick with that, because everyone's different, everyone trains different, but there are fundamentals that everyone should train by. Like for example, training intensity, progressive overload, there's things that everyone has to do, but there's certain exercise selection which you may not feel as much as I. So again, find what works for you. What works for me might not be the best for you, so whatever you're suited for is what you should stick with. But again, very simple muscle group. You just have to be patient with it. I think for you to visually see a lot of shoulder growth, obviously you have to be in a calorie surplus. Lean bulk around maintenance is probably the best thing to do if you're intermediate, but starting, you kind of just increase the calories. But it's a bit of a tangent, we're not talking about diet at the minute. But again, you have to be in a relative calorie surplus to really see some growth over time. It will take a lot of months for you to really genuinely see like some cappage going on. And again, you probably will see the most of it when your body fat starts to get lower. So again, if you're above like 20 to 25% body fat, you're not really gonna see much definition in your shoulders, because again, you've got that body fat covering it. You might, when your body fat starts to get lower, you might start to see some shoulder veins, like going on around here. If you're genetically gifted, it just takes time. It takes a decent amount of time for you to really see pop in your shoulders. Once it does, it definitely has the best overall look on your entire physique. I definitely think that. I mean, I've said this before, I think, but it is probably the single most important muscle for aesthetics, and width and big shoulders are probably what people judge how big your arms are. Like people, when they say you have big arms, they usually mean you have big shoulders initially, unless you actually have big arms. But it's you'll start seeing some compliments run through when you do start seeing more progress on that. But yeah, it does take time. Don't make things too complicated. 2 pressing movements, 3 sets of lateral raises, and some rear delt training when you have the time. And usually do it after back day is when I do it, which is ideally the best time to, because then if you're doing some rows on back day, then you'll naturally, your arm path, you will hit your rear delts anyway if you're doing some rows. So you don't need to go too heavy on them, because you would already have pre-exhausted them beforehand. So that's why you literally really only need 1 to 2 sets for them after a back day, and then you'll be pretty solid. But But yeah, I don't really have much else to add. Again, progressive overload, train pretty intense, find what works for you, and you'll grow in a calorie surplus. And yeah, that's really all you need, to be fair. Again, I could make the same concept for every single muscle group, really. That's why I don't really want to make too much of these types of videos, like how I grew my shoulders fast, how I grew my chest fast, because I feel like I'll kind of just end up reiterating the same information, which is not always bad. You know, some muscle groups may need different types of care than others. Obviously they're all different movements, but the fundamentals still apply: progressive overload, training intensity, and diet. As long as those three are in whatever desired muscle group you're trying to bring up, it will. So yeah, give it time, be patient, and it will happen. But yeah, that's enough from me for now. Strive for greatness, and don't be a vape puffing nerd.